What's up, guys? I'm nobody special, and I have got my good buddy Chris Taylor from Financial Prepper is here with me today. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. How are you? Hey, everybody.
I'm doing great. Thanks for being on the show. I first met Chris in person in Denver back in January, uh, when we all caught the woohoo bat flu together, as you called it.
Group
Um,
suffering.
yeah, and I remember we did a video together when we were in Denver, and we were talking about blue collar workers in finance, and you made some recommendations back then. You recommended two books in particular: The Richest Man in Babylon, and the one I want to talk about today, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I at the time I had not read either. And well, I spend most of my time reading articles and current events and consuming YouTube. So it took me a while to catch up to you, but I finally got through those books, and I wanted to bring you on the channel to talk about them, because I really enjoyed both of them. I really enjoyed the messaging, and you had mentioned that they had had a pretty big impact on you and your life. So I wanted to get your take on it. So give me the high level, 10,000 foot. What did you think of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Well, you really have to take away what you can, what you get. You get what you get. Don't throw a fit. And for me, it was try to as a get up and go to work every day. Pour your coffee, run out the door, go to the job. It kind of taught me that, and this is a quote from the book: a job is a temporary solution to a permanent problem. And that's true. And so many of us trade our time for money, and we're promised 401ks, and we're promised all these little honeypots that a job will lay out in front of you as you serve them. The better you serve them, the more these little honeypots they set out. And that's not in the book, but it all kind of came together for me. And through the book, and I know you got some slides you want to put up, it talks about a financial statement. How we should all be doing that. We do that once a month. Me and my wife sit down and we take all of our businesses and we minus our assets, our liabilities from our assets, and that's our worth. And that's how we structure what we're going to do next. And a lot of it started with Rich Dad Poor Dad and how to think about money and how, the wealthy, he talks about it like planting a tree. You plant a tree, you got to water it, you got to, take care of it, but eventually it will grow on its own and provide shade for you the rest of your life, and you can eat the fruit that comes off of it. And some people don't plant fruit trees, that they'll spend their time planting a tree that won't do anything. But hopefully your tree will bear fruit and provide for you the rest of your life. Now, that's really, it really hit me. I guess between that and The Richest Man in Babylon, it was like it was the same message in two different time frames. And it really kind of structured the way I think about money. And that's why I recommend it to most everybody, even the young welders I've given the book to several people, because it does you no good to make a bunch of money if you can't turn it into more money. There's plenty of doctors and lawyers that are broke. If you don't know how to manage it and invest in wise assets that pay you to own them, then you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, and actually, Kiyosaki did reference The Richest Man in Babylon several times throughout the course of Rich Dad Poor Dad. So obviously, there was a lot of influence there. I'm not surprised that you recommended those two books in tandem with each other, because the overall messaging was the same: put your money to work for you, not just trade your time for money, not just being somebody else's employee, um, but invest that money, pay yourself by investing in assets, and these assets pay you to own them. And in particular, Kiyosaki's philosophy, he's got six important words that you need to understand the meaning of. And he kind of touches on this cycle a couple of times. He refers to income, expenses, assets, liabilities. That's the first four. And then the last two go together: cash flow. And you master those six words. That's the basics of financial literacy. And so many people, myself included, when I got out of engineering school and I was ready to go into white collar work, I couldn't have told you the difference between assets and liabilities and cash flow. We get no financial education whatsoever because our education system is designed to produce employees, not to produce independently wealthy, free individuals.
That's
So
so true.
I wanted to bring up this screen here that I've got, and this is some of the visuals that were in Kiyosaki's book. And again, of course, it's a 500-page book or so, and of course, I go right to the pictures. That's just how I roll. But there were no pop-ups in this book. But this is an income statement, and Kiyosaki uses these visuals to kind of teach the difference. And what he's done here is the difference in the financials of the poor, of the middle class, and of the rich. And obviously, your goal in life is to make it over to the rich column, to the way they do it. But first, start a little bit about the poor, right? The poor, they have their income, they work a job, that income gives them their salary, they pay their expenses, which is their taxes, rent, food, transportation, clothes, and they have nothing left, right? They're living day to day, check to check, right on the brink of poverty constantly. And you'll notice down below in the balance sheet there's their assets and their liabilities. They're all blank because they don't own anything, right? They're just basically treading water. Obviously, not where you want to be. Unfortunately, most of the middle class, as inflation has eaten away at their income, most of the middle class has been driven over into the poor section here since the 1980s, as we've just been chipped away by inflation.
Sure. Well, asset prices are going up. So the rich are getting richer and the poor don't have any.
Yep.
They're borrowing to consume, which is the dumbest thing you can do.
And right now the expenses are going up faster than the incomes are going up. So, their prospects for escaping into the middle class or even the rich classes have become even more bleak because it's just that much harder. Upward mobility has been basically taken away. Now, in the middle class, it's a little different, and this is where we kind of get into the messaging of the book because you're kind of assuming you're starting from a middle class perspective here, where you earn your income, you have your job and your salary, and then you go out and you fall for the trappings of middle class life, right? You get a raise, so you go out and you buy a bigger house, or you buy a nicer car, or you run up your credit card debt, right? Or you've got your student loans, which, I guess let's assume some people still have student loans left, not after yesterday. But all these are liabilities. These are things where the cash flows into those things, not out of those things, right? You buy a nice car, you've got a car payment, you've got
Cash flows out.
maintenance. Yep.
Cash flows out of liabilities. You're losing money.
Yes, exactly. And that's the big difference between an asset and a liability is the direction of cash flow, which kind of brings me to one of Kiyosaki's more controversial statements, I'll say, or maybe one of his more debated topics. And he talks about your home. And, he says most people believe their home is an asset and that it's their largest asset. But Kiyosaki actually believes your home is your biggest liability. And if you use his measure of cash flow as a litmus test for whether it's an asset or liability, he's right about that, right? Because your home has maintenance costs, you've got insurance costs, you've got interest on your mortgage, you've got property taxes. These are all
Yeah.
expenses.
It really hurts people's feelings when you tell them their house isn't an asset.
Yep.
They think it's their biggest asset, and yeah, you can debate it, and you can also make your house cash flow. You can rent a room out. You can do stuff like that. But if it's not spitting out money every month, it's not an asset.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't have to tell me twice because I bought my first home in August of 2006. I bought my first condo. I took all the money I made as a commercial fisherman, and I was so excited. I finally made it into the ownership class, and it was like a year later, the bottom fell out of the market, and I lost all that money I made on the fishing boat. My God, the things I went through to earn that money, and yeah, it just went up in smoke. So that was a tough lesson in assets and liabilities. I hadn't read Kiyosaki's book at the time, so I didn't really have the words to fill in what was happening, but certainly the sentiment was there because that was the biggest liability I ever bought in my life, and money just went up in smoke.
Yeah, if you're like me, you get your lessons good and hard, and you don't forget them.
Yeah. So moving on to the far end of this, right, where everybody hopes to one day make it, to the rich, and the cash flow statement is very simple for the rich, isn't it? They own assets, and those
Yeah.
assets pay them their income. They don't trade their time for money. They don't work for somebody else. They're not someone else's employee. They don't have a pension or a 401k, but they own real estate, stocks, bonds. What else are they saying here? Notes, intellectual properties, all things that pay them. And then
And
the other big difference when you own businesses or when you own intellectual properties is you pay your expenses before you pay your taxes. right? When you're poor or when you're trading your time for money, you get your income, you pay your taxes. If there's anything left over, then you can pay your expenses. When you own a business, those expenses go in front of the taxes. So you make your income from your business, then you pay off your expenses, and if there's anything left over, then you pay your taxes. And that's another big difference between the rich and the middle class.
Well, yeah, this is, I guess this is probably the meat of it. But to anybody that hasn't read it, you can listen to it for free on YouTube. It's completely free education. It ought to be a class in every high school called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to do that this semester. There ought to be another class on how to run the numbers on rental properties. I mean, we ought to really teach things that people could actually use instead of teaching A students how to work for C students. But
I love that talking point. I've never heard that before. That is awesome. How to teach A students to work for C students. Because you're absolutely right, man.
yeah,
I was not an A student, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there. My mom and
it's
dad are laughing
actually
right now.
correctly, it's A students teach B students how to work for C students, because the A students are usually the teachers, that teach the B students work for C students. But there's a few things in the book that it really stood out to me. And this is a dream. I wish, we all do wish we had somebody to really show us the ropes when we were little, like he did. So he had a rich dad, which was his friend's dad, and his poor dad was his dad, highly educated. I'm not going to tell you all about the book, but he had somebody kind of show him. They wanted to make money, so they went to the rich dad. They wanted to be like him, and he had them work for free, and he taught them a lot of the hard lessons that many people don't get to learn until they're older, when it sucks to learn them. And he taught them how to think out of the box. And I remember the comic book story where he wasn't paying them, so they couldn't buy the comic books. And so they waited until the comic books were out of date, and they were throwing them away. And then they were getting them hundreds at a time. They'd tear the front page off, and they created a library and rented it out to the neighborhood. They were making $9 a week renting out comic books. That kind of stuff it tickles me, because anything that makes you think outside of the box, get creative on how you think about making money, and try to think of assets all the time, everywhere you go. Hey, I bought a pile of welding stingers a while back for $6 on eBay, and they're worth $50. I know they are, because I used them every day for 20 years, and I know what a good stinger is and what isn't, and it is the best. So I bought a bunch of them, and I'm selling them for $50. There's little things like that you can do that really add up, and that's money that you don't have to blow right away. Try to have a nest egg, especially right now. I think we're looking at a crash like we've never seen before. And if you could digest some of this book for free on YouTube, you might be able to mitigate the next crisis a lot better than most everybody else.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki, he made most of his money in real estate, right? That's the book was written in the 90s, before the real estate crash. But obviously he's a big fan of real estate, and owning of rental properties is one of the messages that you take away from the book. That's really how he built most of his wealth, was trading up as he was flipping rental properties and earning income for them. And a lot of people, the general consensus is, there's still a few people who are bullish on housing, but the general consensus is we're heading towards an asset price crash, and homes are going to be on fire sale prices soon. And
That's
so
what I'm
that
thinking.
it's going to be one of those opportunities. If you had bought up rental properties in 2010, 2011,
Oh man,
man, you made out like a bandit, right?
that's the
And
people I learned from, man. And it wasn't like that when I was buying them, and we didn't get quite the deal, but we did good. Don't get me wrong. We just signed a contract to sell 3 of them yesterday.
wow.
So we're selling 3 more, and I'm scaling out, and we're just taking the money and paying off, the stuff, just trying to be liquid as possible and not be part of the problem. So
Absolutely.
it's funny we're talking about this, because this is all what I was into when I was buying rental properties, and really, just when I get into something, it's all the way in. And it's funny we're talking about it, because now I'm actually selling them. And it's really hard for me to do because I really enjoy the rental property game. If anybody, I've got actually 5 or 6 videos on how to do it. If anyone wants to check them out, go to Financial Prepper. Me and my wife, we actually talk a lot about this. You're going to have to do all this financial statement and provide it to the bank anyway, if you want to do that. So you might as well do it, get it done. And that's how you kind of keep track of your portfolio allocation as well. Do you do this once a month, Jack? You kind of, I know you probably keep,
I wouldn't say once a month, but I do a similar statement. I had a document like this. It didn't look like this. The rectangles weren't in the same place, but I've
No.
been maintaining a document like this my whole life without even really realizing what I was doing. I just had a name for it after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it helps tremendously.
now I got to touch on this because I've noticed on my channel before. I've mentioned Kiyosaki during some of my live streams, and there is a very small, very vocal group out there that really doesn't like Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if it's got to do with his personal politics. I mean, he tends to be very conservative, very libertarian leaning, right? But there's a lot of people that really don't like him. All right, I'm not one of them. I listen to his podcast on the regular. I really enjoy it. People mention they accuse him of being fraud. They say that he filed for bankruptcy. I read up a little bit about his bankruptcy. He lost a court case a couple of years ago, and one of his companies filed for bankruptcy. Right? That doesn't make the guy a fraud, to be honest with you, because when one of his companies filed for bankruptcy, he walked away and he was still a multimillionaire
It
who
makes
owned a
him
whole bunch of
smart.
assets. Yeah, exactly. So it
Trump
seemed
did
like
that too. People are stupid, man.
yeah, he seemed like he protected himself pretty well, actually, with compartmentalizing his assets in his different companies.
Yeah,
That
you
was
can
my
dissolve an
takeaway.
entity and keep all your other entities. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's poppycock. But I understand a lot of people. He's a little bit arrogant. Um, some people, as they get older and they've accumulated so much wealth, they kind of have a right to be a little bit arrogant.
Yep.
And that grates on some people. It does me. But as far as what he teaches, I mean, I don't know how. I'm grateful to him for showing me, how money works and recommending Richest Man in Babylon. I didn't know that's where I got that book from. That's probably where, though, his book, the original book that I read. And there's a little pamphlet out there that you can get that a friend of mine gave me right after high school. And it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if it was a summary or anything. And I read through it. Uh, I was just kind of living for the moment like most 19-year-olds. But it stuck in my head. This it talked about assets and just kind of touched around. So that's kind of the book that I went back to when I was ready, when I was, I guess you get there at a certain age. I'm not sure. Most people don't have a full deck of cards until they're 30. And that's about 28 when I started. It's like, I got to do something about this problem, and this job is a temporary solution to it. And that's kind of when I woke up and started buying assets. I really hope we all get to do that in the future. The problem right now is assets are so freaking expensive. The numbers don't work, because if you'll learn how to run numbers on a rental property, you won't get burned, because the numbers don't lie. That's what's the most incredible thing is you can run the numbers, look at the market, see how it's going to do. You think it's going to go up and down. But once you learn it, you know it. And it's as soon as we hit that spot where the numbers didn't work anymore, we stopped buying. It's really kind of easy, to be honest with you. Once you do it one time, you might lose money on the first one. It doesn't matter. That it really doesn't. You're going to learn so much on the first one, it's worth losing money on, because you're going to do way better on the next one. And by the fifth and sixth one, it's going to be like, just let's go. I'm ready to buy 10 or 100. I'd like to own 100 one day. That's my goal, is 100 doors.
Well, I can tell you in a market like this, it's interesting because you're right. We do have these overly bloated asset prices, and I commend you. You bought after the crash, and now here you are. We're pretty close to a top, if not at a top, and you're selling those assets probably with a nice, good amount of capital gains. So you're going to be well positioned in cash to capitalize after this downturn. At the same time, we're looking at record high inflation, right? The highest inflation in 40 years. So holding cash does come at an inflationary cost. So there's no cookie cutter solution right now. Oh, just sell this and buy this and you'll be fine. you really have to approach every transaction on an individual case right now. You have to look at the comps in a local area. You can't just say buy real estate or sell real estate or buy this and not that, because it's tough to navigate right now. Let's put it that way.
But you could do, I'm learning to think in percentages. That's what the wealthy do. And here's a little tip: all you have to do to be wealthy is do what the wealthy do. And so if I had, say, I had 30% of my wealth in real estate, I took that back down to about 10. And you can take that 20% and you can put it in precious metals or some other inflationary hedge. I kind of think cash is going to do good one more time, especially when we really, they're raising rates and they're really trying to crush everything down. And it might be the buying opportunity with cash of a lifetime. There are some crazy black swans flying around though, like this CBDC and all this stuff. So gold really looks good to me. Gold and silver. I think I'm going to park a little bit more of it over there.
Yeah, I'm always regularly making small on the regular purchases of gold and silver, small amounts, a little bit every month, every quarter or so. I don't try to time the markets. And
You, I
go ahead.
find that strange that you dollar cost average into Bitcoin.
Yep.
That's I can see doing that with gold and silver, but not Bitcoin. Hey, but you're smarter than me when it comes to that. So you're probably
Yeah.
right, but
Well, I
it's
can tell
just
you,
so volatile, man.
gold, precious metals, and cryptocurrencies, right? The people tend to lump them together, right? The Bitcoin people love to poke fun at the gold and silver people, and they say, "Oh, enjoy your shiny rock caveman," that kind of thing. Like it's obsolete. No, 4,000 years of history that gold has been money doesn't just go away because somebody wrote some code. All right, it's sorry that it doesn't work that way.
The people that say that have a bunch of it. Always
Yep.
remember that.
And then the people that are, then there's gold bugs who say all the people who are buying Bitcoin, they're taking inflation hedge value that should be flowing into gold and silver, and instead they're buying Bitcoin. And so they call it a scheme that has been created to suppress gold prices by the banks and everything. Like, and I don't buy into that argument either, because precious metals and cryptocurrency don't even live in the same time zone when it comes to risk reward profile, right? Gold and silver, zero risk, low reward is the way it's right. You don't get rich owning gold and silver. You preserve your spending power. Now, if you buy into the fact that the prices are suppressed and if you get a correction to the mean, yes, you should technically make money off of precious metals if the COMEX were to fail or if the bank price rigging scheme were to fail. But then over on the other side is crypto, where you got 10% intraday volatility on the regular. I mean, that's such a far cry from the investment profile of precious metals to act like if we didn't have Bitcoin, that money would be flowing into gold. I think it just ignores the fundamentals of investing. I find the crypto investment to be much more speculative. I have a smaller allocation to crypto, and I have an ultra long time horizon. Right? I look at cryptocurrency as if I have no plans to sell it until well after 2030. I want to go through several more of these halving cycles and see what the price does. Ride that overall uptrend, right? You've got 60% upside in one year and then 50% correction down the next year, but then 120% a year later. Just instead of trying to time in and out, which is when people get burned, I'm not getting into any of these altcoin scams, or I'm not staking or handing it over to somebody who's going to go out and lend it out and pay me 20% interest. Heck no.
Yeah,
I
don't do
don't
any of
touch
that.
that noise. I park that stuff in cold storage and I
I've already
sit on
been
it.
there, lost a bunch of money. It's the first time I ever lost $100,000.
Ouch. Ouch. That was my first condo. That was the when I lost all that money on my first condo. Man, I
Yeah, I
don't
won't
ever want to
forget
go through
that
that again.
lesson. I won't forget it ever. But that's the way that was the world I was playing in. That's how I got the money in the first place, was speculating like crazy. And when you buy something at a penny, it goes to a dollar, it's life changing. It's like, wow, that was fun. Let's do it again. This is great. And you'll get wiped out if you keep doing that. You will lose money. And but you're right. Crypto is probably the biggest asymmetric bet of our lifetime. I'm not sure. I know this isn't supposed to be a crypto talk, but I would like to do another talk on how the CBDC is going to fit in with crypto, because a digital currency and cryptocurrency are two different things. And most everybody has that confused. I don't know how they're going to Are we still going to trade? Are we going to trade CBDCs for Bitcoin? I mean, there's a lot of gray area there that I'm just not sure about. And, the Bitcoin maxis think that's going to be the new currency, and that's all there is to it. But if the government tells you they're going to cut your head off if you've got a Bitcoin, if we catch you with a the price will go to zero. They're saying, oh, well, they can't do it. Yes, they can. They can, if they can take your gold away. I think they're going to try to do that with silver after everybody buys it all up and we don't have enough to be green. I think they're going to do some kind of you can't sell it. You can't buy it, but you can sell it type thing. I'm not, who knows the future, but they can do anything is what I'm saying. So there's a lot of gray area there for me.
I mean, to tie it back to this book, right? The CBDC argument, the leadership in this world is relying on the total ignorance of the population when it comes to finance. And I'll tell you, 95% of the population is financially illiterate, does not understand the most basic points of finance. 95% of the population, I'm telling you,
Wow.
if you're watching this channel, if you're watching this video or channels like mine or Chris's, then you've taken the time to invest in yourself and to develop a little bit of that financial literacy, which never ends, by the way. Don't think, okay, I've achieved literacy. I don't need to stop learning anymore, because keep doing it. But, a book like this, reading something like this, is how you see through that crap, how you see through the lies that they're going to spin to tell us that, oh, yeah, we need this programmable money so the government can throttle your every transaction and have a say in what you are or are not allowed to buy, right? They're relying on your financial illiteracy to get something like that into law, to force you to live by their rules in every aspect of your life. And reading a book like Rich Dad Poor Dad is a big step in the direction of financial literacy that can help you see through that crap and be on guard for it. So it wasn't that much of a sidebar, Chris, to be honest with you. I think it ties
Yeah,
in
I guess
pretty
you're
well
right.
with this book.
Yeah, good job.
Well, Chris, I want to say thank you very much for recommending the book. I really enjoyed it. We're going to have to do another one and talk about The Richest Man in Babylon, because that was the other one that you recommended in that video. I really enjoyed that one too. And we could probably talk all about that one in a whole separate video.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that'd
put a
be
link
good.
in the description down below to Financial Prepper on YouTube. I highly recommend his channel. You check that out. I'm also going to put links down there to the YouTube that Chris mentioned, where you can listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad for free. Or if you prefer to read a paperback, I will put an Amazon affiliate link down there where you can find the book there also. That is an affiliate link. I'll always let you know when I use that. And Chris, I'll let you do the send off. Anything you want to say?
Guys, I appreciate you listening and watching and doing your best to not be part of the problem. Because if you're not part of the problem, you will have the opportunity to be part of the solution. And above all, I want you to have an awesome, awesome day. Later, Jack.
Later, Chris. Take it easy, folks.